You're watching The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the God. We are The Breakfast Club. We have a special guest in the building today.
Yes, the gentlewoman from California, Queen Maxine Waters is here.
Maxine Waters.
How are you?
Well, I am so good. How's everybody this morning?
Oh, we are great.
Blessed, black, and highly
I'm
favored.
just delighted to be here.
And we're honored to have you here.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Congratulations on your humanitarian award from BET, courtesy of Black Girls Rock.
Oh, yes, I'm excited about that, too. Looking forward to that.
What did that mean to you?
Well, it means that, I've been identified as one of the black women who's involved in something, who's doing something, a woman with energy, et cetera, all of that. It's just kind of a black woman recognition.
There you go.
Now, let's start from the beginning. Now, how did you become a congresswoman? What made you want to go into politics, of all things?
That's a long story. Prior to being in the House of Representatives, I was in the State House. I was in the legislature, and I ran for that seat right at the height of the women's movement, a long time ago before you all were born. And so, it really was at the height of the women's movement, and women were being encouraged to run. And I was in the Head Start program, and I'd been organizing in the communities, getting mothers involved, getting parents taking control of their children's educational destiny and all of that. And so one of the members of the California State Assembly decided to resign, got into some problems. And, of course, I was encouraged to run. And the women were saying, why don't you run? Why don't you run? And that member who resigned took his administrative assistant to the Secretary of State's office at the last minute. We didn't know that he was not going to run. His administrative assistant signed up. He was the only one in the race. Race closed down. And, of course, we got together, women, and said, no, this is not right. They opened it back up. A woman who was the Secretary of State opened it back up for 5 days. I signed up, and everything else is history. I ran. Yeah.
No looking back after that.
Yeah, no looking back. That's right.
I always wonder for people like you lived through the civil rights era for real. Like, how much has the world changed and how much has it stayed the same?
Or has it changed? It seems like it hasn't.
Well, it has changed significantly, but you have to talk about how it has changed. What's happening with the change? It is social media. It's your young people. It's the millennials. It's a different way of communicating and connecting. But, of course, some of the issues that we have been involved with, whether it's voting rights or police brutality or some of those issues, prison reform, et cetera, still exist.
Social media got you hot, Queen Maxine.
I know.
You popping out there. You popping in these streets.
And it just happened. I don't know what happened, but somehow I connected. And so your young people said, you like what I'm doing.
I think it's the realness. It's the authenticity.
You think so?
Yeah, because so many politicians, you can see, we live in a transparent era. You can see when they're being full of it. You know what I mean? They're just real.
Well, I know that some people say, oh, you're so outspoken, you're confrontational. And I think what happened was this. My career has always been one of challenge. And I've always, dealt up front with the issues. But for a number of years, my voice was not heard because I'm on the Financial Services Committee. And we were dealing with many of the issues that don't get a lot of exposure. We did get some exposure when we had the subprime meltdown and they had all the foreclosures in many communities across the country.
Right.
But when we talk about Wall Street and we talk about derivatives and margins and all of that, that's not sexy enough to be carried. And so, people didn't hear me for a long time because I was so concentrated on all of those issues. But then when Trump showed up, then I had to show up.
Then you had to show up.
I had to show up.
Now, with all of the attention and all the love that you get from people like us, you also get a lot of hate, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially when it comes to dealing with Trump and his whole entire campaign is basically filled with hate. How do you deal with that?
Oh, listen, as an African-American woman who has been involved in the struggle, it's coming, you know who they are, and you know how not to let it devastate you, and you build the strength to fight back, to push back, and let it just go over your shoulders, It's not something that's going to put me in the bed and say, oh, my God. Every day I wake up energized.
Now, you mentioned the Housing and Community Committee. Now, I know one thing with African Americans, it's hard to get a loan. It's very hard for African Americans to get a house. That's why I think a lot of us rent for so long. And I know at one point it was way easy, and then they kind of closed that in. What can we do to try to open that back up so African Americans and minorities can start getting loans again and start buying houses and being able to pass these properties down to our kids?
Well, let me just say this. At one time, there was redlining. This was years ago, where they literally drew a line around communities and said, we're not lending to those communities. Right. And of course, those are black communities and minority communities. They just didn't think that you were capable of paying a mortgage. And so we fought that. We fought that very hard, and we undid redlining. And then they discovered, there's money in those communities. Right. And they came back with the subprime loans, said you can get some money, but it's going to cost you more. And we were targeted so that we were paying more interest rates
8%,
for our loans,
7%.
Despite the fact we had equal income, equal employment, paid our debts as well as other people. So we were treated very poorly. And then, of course, with the subprime lending, there was a meltdown because of the way that they did it. They literally went overboard, and they said, we're going to lend to everybody because we can get Wall Street to buy these loans. And so what they did was, it was fraud. A lot of fraud involved. A lot of making up of what the income was, despite the fact it was not really that. Just sign on the dotted line. They didn't vet them. They had no vet loans, et cetera. So they built a lot of paper, and they got a lot of people to sign on the dotted line. They packaged those from the community banks and other banks, and they sold them up to Wall Street, and Wall Street had people invest in them. And, of course, the devil came due on those people down here who got into those easy loans where they reset, and the interest rates went up. People couldn't afford to pay any more than they could afford when they signed up for the loan. Right. And so they lost their homes, and the devastation was, overbearing. It was just outrageous how many homes got foreclosed on during that period of time. But we have to deal with these banks and these financial institutions. These are people who have gotten away with the kind of policies that caused us not to be able to get loans for so many years. These are the robbers on Wall Street. These are the gangsters on Wall Street. These are the people who find another way to figure out how to get your money and not to give you what you deserve for the money that you're paying. So we're constantly fighting. That's what the Dodd-Frank reforms are all about in Congress. When it came to the point where so many people were losing their homes and we had all this devastation going on, Senator Dodd and Barney Frank got together with this legislation. I was a part of that on the conference committee where we went through everything we could go through to find out what had happened. And so we came up with a lot of laws, and it is the Dodd-Frank Reform Law. But we're being resisted by the Republicans who are in bed with the banks. And we're saying there's certain things you can't do. You can't do these kind of loans anymore. But we're resisted. We have the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that's paying attention. They're fighting him. Mr. Cordray, who heads that, is really good. He's been doing a great job. But we're up against it. So what can we do? First thing we got to do is get rid of Trump.
Is that possible?
Oh, well, yeah. Mnuchin was before my committee, as you know. He's the Treasury Secretary. He's for getting rid of the reforms. This president is for getting rid of the reforms. They've got Goldman Sachs and everybody, that's in government now more than ever before, and they're running it. They're telling them what to do. And so we've got to get rid of this administration. We've got to get rid of those who control our committees, like Zeb Henseling on my Financial Services Committee, so that we can have an opportunity to get back into lending. And we've got to support minority banks.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yes.
Do you believe in banking black?
I believe in banking black, and I got in trouble because I believe it so much.
Really?
Oh, yeah. During the bailout, when there was a bank that basically lost $50 million overnight because it was taken over by Fannie Mae, and they came to me for help. I called the treasurer, and they investigated me, and it went on and on and on. And finally, of course, I was exonerated. I had not done anything wrong. But I believe in black banks. I work very closely with the NBA, and I want to make them have more access to capital so they can put more money out in our communities. Right. And it's tough. It's rough, but it is a fight that we have to engage in.
Yeah, I bank with One United. That's one of my banks. I wonder what can we do to help strengthen the black bank?
Well, we got to bank with them.
Okay.
That's number one. We got to do our business with these black banks and make sure that they are viable and make sure that they're able to provide the loans that we need in order to invest in home purchases.
Right.
That's one of the ways that we gain wealth. Is you buy a house, that house is going to appreciate for the most part, and particularly in certain states. When you build up that equity and you have money not only to pay your mortgage, but now you can sell that house, you can borrow on that house, you may have money to invest in a business, to send your kids to college, what have you. So home ownership is extremely important. And during that subprime meltdown that we went through, that recession, blacks lost a significant portion of their wealth.
Right.
Yeah, sometimes I feel when it comes to business, black people don't trust each other.
Well, that's been said, and it's not that so much that we don't trust each other. It's a constant educational process about how we can help each other, how we can strengthen our communities, and how to go about pooling our resources. And so it's not that we don't trust each other. We've not had the opportunity to invest in viable businesses and ways by which we could create wealth. And we have to keep working with each other. Right. We have to keep learning, and we have to keep believing that we can really do this.
Now, I was listening to you on Angela Rye's podcast.
Yes.
And you said Tupac was your favorite rapper.
Yeah.
Why Tupac?
Well, it's because, there was a certain sensitivity about him, and I got to know his mom. And when he did that song that he did that talked about his mom.
Dear Mom.
Dear Mom. Mom was a dope thing, but she was my queen, of
there
course. You go. Yeah, that really struck me as somebody who not only was brilliant and smart and all of that, but had a real sensibility and a heart and an understanding that a lot of people don't have. When you can, recognize that your mom is in trouble, but also recognize that that is your mother, and you do everything that you can for her, that many people will fall into trouble. And I have this theory that when people know better, they do better.
That's a fact.
And so, a lot of mothers don't know any better. Unfortunately, young oftentimes have children. And so Tupac for me was very special. And he was smart. And I just, I loved him.
Did you ever meet him?
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course I met Tupac. As a matter of fact, they used to do a Mother's Day program in Los Angeles, a number of the rappers, what have you, and they'd always invite me, and I'd go. Yeah, and I was one of the defenders of rap music, even when it was gangster music, because I thought it was creative, and I thought that it opened up a whole new economic opportunity for black people, where jobs and positions were created when they wouldn't play rap music on some of the major stations. And so, and I don't believe in censorship. So I had to go up against C. Delores Tucker and some of those who were trying to censor rap music. But I always knew it would evolve. And, back in the day with Queen Latifah and all of them, who were finding themselves, look at them now.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, look how they have evolved.
Right.
And so,
Just a businesswoman, executive,
business,
entrepreneur, producer.
creative, business, all of that.
I find it interesting that you said rappers shouldn't be censored. Why do you feel that way?
Well, I think censorship is unconstitutional. And I think it's a way of quietening voices that maybe people in power don't want to hear, because it potentially interferes with their ability to do what they do and to say what they want to say and to exercise power in certain ways. And so when you have people who are willing to challenge the establishment, that is potentially dangerous for the establishment. So no, I don't believe in censorship of any kind.
Even when it's like the misogyny and the disrespect of women that they say rappers do?
No, I really don't. I mean, I'd like it, but I feel like this. What you don't want to hear, don't listen to it.
True.
You know what I'm saying?
I tell people about this show.
Yeah. What you don't want your kids to hear or see, shut it down. But when you start to talk about limiting voices and opinions, I think that's dangerous in a democracy.
Now, Queen Maxine, what do you think is going to happen?
That sounds so good, Queen Maxine.
with health care? Because obviously that's a huge issue for us right now. What's going on with the Affordable Care Act? What is Trump planning to do? He wants it to collapse and we have no plan in place after that. What do you think?
Well, first of all, forget about what Trump wants to do because he sent mixed messages to his own caucus. I think what you see now is an understanding that the Senate is not going to be able to pass anything. Now we have a group that's emerged that's calling themselves bipartisan, Democrats and Republicans, who have come up with some ways by which to change some of the Obamacare and to deal with some of the concerns. We never thought Obamacare was perfect. And we don't like to see the premiums rise, and we want insurance companies to stay involved. And we always said to them, we're willing to work with you. They didn't want to work with us, but now I think we see them, some of them, who want to work with us to see what we can come up with.
Now, Donald Trump once said on the campaign trail when talking to black people, he said, vote for me, what do you have to lose? And you recently had some answers to that question.
Yeah, yes, of course we have answers. What do we have to lose? Just take a look at Jeff Sessions, his attorney general, who is trying to roll back voting rights, who does not believe in consent decrees. Consent decrees is what allow you to go into areas like Ferguson, where you have had rogue cops, and try and straighten out those police departments. The Justice Department would come in, they would point out all of the things that they were doing that were harmful, and they will try and work out an agreement with them that they will stop certain practices, they will do certain kind of trainings, they would get rid of bad cops. But Jeff Sessions doesn't want to do that anymore. He says that's interference in local police jurisdictions, and we shouldn't do it. Also, in addition to that, he wants to roll back affirmative action. And so what do we have to lose? Mr. Trump, everything.
Well, we got you some
A
water.
lot.
We got you some water.
Just in case you need
Thank
some.
you very much.
Now,
Yeah.
I ask this to Angela Rye every time she comes up here. How far are we from kicking Trump out the White House? Is that possible? Can we do that, or is that far-fetched? We got to wait for his term to be over?
Let me just say this. For some of us who saw that this was a deplorable human being early on in the campaign, where he mimicked and mocked a disabled journalist, talked about grabbing women by their private parts, stalked Hillary Clinton, talked about his colleagues, Little Rubio, called them names, etc. We believe that he certainly should not be president and did not think he would be president. But we knew that this was a man with no good values. And so when he became president, of course, we were shocked and we were surprised. But I started right then talking about he should be impeached because not only the way that he conducted himself during the campaign, but we learned a lot about his allies and his associates who had ties to Russia and to the Ukraine and to oil. And so I knew that this was someone who had been involved with collusion with the Russians in undermining our democracy. And of course, 17 of our intelligence agencies said that they certainly had hacked into the DNC and even the RNC. And so I believe that he should be impeached, and I've said it early on. And of course, I've been criticized by Democrats and Republicans and everybody. But now, bit by bit, drip by drip, it's coming home to roost. And let me tell you, I do think it is possible. Republicans, some of them are frightened. Some of them don't know what to do. I think they're absolutely concerned. But here's what I'm challenging. You claim to be patriotic. You think you wave your flag higher than anybody else. You talk about you are the most patriotic, and some of us out here are not as patriotic as you are. I'm challenging you. Are you going to stand by and watch this man destroy the democracy? Are you going to stand by and watch him join with Putin to undermine the democracy in the interest of drilling oil in the Arctic? He told Putin that he would lift those sanctions. Now Putin is mad at him because we had a bill that stops him from lifting the sanctions, and he could not back away from it because not only was Russia in it, we also had in that bill North Korea, and we had one other country. Russia, it was Russia, and it was North Korea, and who was the third one? Oh, it was Iran.
Is it Iran?
Iran, all in the bill. So with North Korea being such a threat and with so much support for increasing the sanctions on Iran, he couldn't back off even if he wanted to protect Russia. Now Putin is mad at him. Now, let's see what Putin has on him, because, there are allegations about a dossier that may be available and other kinds of things. So I believe it is possible to impeach him. How long is it going to take? I don't know, but I give it to about December. And I think
soon. Okay.
I give it to December. Our new special counsel, Mr. Mueller, has impaneled a grand jury, as you know, as of yesterday. And they will be involved with investigations, and they can do indictments also. So little by little, drip by drip, it's happening.
But doesn't the vice president then become president?
Could be, and we'll get him next.
What was your thoughts on Trump saying, telling police not to be too nice when it comes to handling
If you put
suspects?
their head down, just let their head hit the...
Yeah, just let it hit it once or twice.
Well, that's typical of what he did during the campaign. Remember when the protesters went to his campaigns and he told the people to beat him up and said so much he'd get them out of jail, in essence, if they did? This is consistent with his character, and that is promoting violence. And I think it was wrong. I said so. I tweeted about it. But this is who he is. I mean, this is a man that's capable of almost anything. And so I don't like it. I don't think it's right. We have been the victims of so much violence. And we've had unarmed men killed, particularly unarmed young black men. And so I think that was, whistling to them to keep doing it, to keep treating them harshly. And so I'm opposed to it, and I'll continue to speak out about it.
Queen Maxine, who do you think can bring about change quicker, black politicians or black activists?
I think that it has to be a combination. Legislators are elected to create public policy, to go to Washington, D.C., and fight for those things that are in the best interest of everybody, and particularly those communities from which they are elected. But the activists in the street are the ones who really give them the backup that they need. If you take a look at the Tea Party or the Freedom Fund, they have people in the street who really fight for them. You take the gun owners, they're organized. They keep pressure on their elected officials. They work with their elected officials. And too often, our folks are not at the table, certainly, but are not organized, are not working. We depend kind of on, the NAACP or,
We're waiting for a leader to come tell us what to do, or for them to do it, and us to just sit back.
What I like about the millennials now is I see this organizing going on, even though a lot of it is in the social media. That's good. We have to be active. We have to be involved. We have to say what we don't like. Don't let politicians just come to your church and give a Bible verse and everybody say amen and people go home. Ask them, what did you do? Ask them about their votes. Take a look at their records and see who they are, what they care about, what are they leading on. The more the communities are involved, the better your politicians will be.
That's how I feel like, when Barack was in the White House, I feel like we didn't organize and go to him with something for our communities.
Well, I think there was not enough interaction. I think that he had great potential. I think once people elected him, they simply said, now we've elected him and he'll get it done. Right. And they didn't realize that not only do you have the Congress and the legislature and all of that, but they needed the same young people who got involved in the campaign to be involved in now helping to direct and organize public policy.
Do you think black people should start their own political party?
To do what?
Should start their own political party.
No, not at this point. You've got to show that you're willing and you're able to put the numbers together and exercise your influence. We still are not voting our influence yet. I think what we should do is organize our power, exercise our power, particularly in the Democratic Party, because that's where most of us are. We should go to the conventions. We should be delegates. We should run for office, do all of that, and then you can raise that kind of question, whether or not we're strong enough to talk about organizing another party.
Got you. Who do you think will be the Dem nominee in 2020?
Oh, I don't know. There are a lot of people who are talking about it. You've got Kamala Harris and Cory Booker and everybody. You've got a lot of folks who are going to run.
Well,
we're going to have some good people.
Yourself. I mean, Ronald Reagan left office at 77. So, I mean, you're a spring chicken yourself. So I think a lot of people would support you if you wanted to throw your name in that ring.
I think I have work to do. And let me just say this. I'm considered controversial and confrontational.
So is he.
And that's right. But, what I need to do is kind of what I do, and that is create the challenge, open up the discussion, and encourage people, and let those who, are willing to be a little bit more cooperative in the way that they handle this complicated political system in order to move forward. So I'm good where I am. I'm okay.
She good, okay?
You mentioned Cory Booker. What do you think about his thoughts on legalizing marijuana federally?
Well, I think the question of the legalization of marijuana is just about over. It is what it is. It's happening. You have states that have already legalized, California now, Colorado, some other states. It's a fait accompli. That is it. And the federal government may as well recognize that because it's happening.
What do you think of Cory for president?
Oh, I think he should run if he wants to run.
What about Kamala Harris?
I think she should run if she wants to run.
I wanted to ask, what do you think about the gun laws? Because, gun laws are strict in some states, but open in a lot of states. You got 33 states that basically you can have a gun, conceal it, not a problem. But then you have these other states where if you get caught with a weapon, you're going to jail for a minimum 3 years. What do you think about some of these gun laws?
That's, how the democracy is organized according to the Constitution and so-called states' rights,
right,
where states have the ability to create their own laws. But what really bothers me is the killing of a black man who is in a state where you can have a gun, you can possess a gun. He said, I have a gun.
Right.
He told them,
every
and
law.
because I think he was an African-American man, he was killed because no matter the law, you're not supposed to have a gun. And so
Philando Castile, rest in peace.
I really don't like guns. I really don't like guns. I think that the more that, people possess guns, the more they're going to use them. And I wish that we could shut it down. I really do. I understand what you're saying, the differences in the various states, and they have a right to create their own laws. The federal government can't override all of that. I just think in our community, we must not only educate about guns and be aware of the violence that takes place and work very hard to do everything that we can to tell folks this is not the way to solve a dispute.
Right.
This is not the way to deal with the fact that somebody has, dissed you. We cannot kill each other.
Are you ever afraid these Trump crazies may try something? Because I saw one video where you was outside and the guy was like really in your face and you told him off, and I'm like, damn, I hope Queen Maxine got security or something.
No, yeah, we do have some security, but I tell them, if you're going to shoot, you better shoot straight because a wounded animal is the worst thing you can deal with.
Okay,
Queen Maxine, do you think Donald Trump is the worst president we've ever had in the United States?
The worst I've ever seen, the worst I've ever experienced, yes, I do. I really do, because I think he believes in nothing. I think that he cares about nothing. I think that he's capable of doing outrageous things. And so even with, presidents that you could accuse of racism, et cetera, this president is the worst that I've ever seen, yes.
It's amazing how they didn't start trying to paint you as crazy until you started calling him out, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're after me. As a matter of fact, that coalition of alt-right groups that's headed by Bannon, who's in this administration, and others will do everything that they can to discredit me. And this is going to go on for as long as I'm outspoken and as long as I'm out there. So we're going to hear a lot about Maxine Waters, and they'll make up things, but that's okay. I'm prepared to deal with it.
What do you think about the shift in the Department of Justice policy to use the Civil Rights Division to go after affirmative action programs in colleges?
Well, that's Jeff Sessions. I mean, he's a throwback. This is a man who has a record and a history of racism, of being opposed to voting rights. And I mentioned when I tweeted Coretta Scott King, who warned us and told us when he attempted to be confirmed for Attorney General back in the 60s, that he should not be confirmed because of his record of racism, et cetera. So I don't think much about him. I think that he's a danger to us and much of what we have gained and what we have fought for. And while, they're fighting on the inside, and Trump wants to fire him because he recused himself, and he thinks that, Sessions is not doing enough to protect him, let them fight each other and let them explode, but no, Jeff Sessions is dangerous.
I know you got to go soon, so I got one last question. How can black people reclaim their time in this country?
The first thing black people have got to do is to understand that we are worthy, that we are deserving, and that we should have opportunities. We should continue to fight against discrimination, and we should challenge it, and we should not be quiet. I think many of our young people have been taught, go to school, graduate, get yourself a good job, don't make too much noise on the job, fit in so that you can, earn a decent salary and you can get a raise. No, life is about a lot more than that. Life is about not only aspiring to opportunity, but not allowing people to dismiss you, to undermine you, to intimidate you, that you have to find a way to not only speak up for yourself, but to organize with others so that we can challenge injustice. And so I think it's very important to get grounded, to know who you are, and you will be inspired to move in the right direction. But if you're fuzzy and you don't have confidence and you don't believe that you're worthy, you're never going to be able to do the kind of challenging that will open up these opportunities. And talk with other people so that people exchange what's going on in their lives and talk about how they handle certain things on the job, how they're saving money and how they're trying to get involved with creating a business. Let's talk with each other. Let's work together. Yep. Let's believe in our communities and in the struggle that has taken place to get us where we are today. I think we can do all of this. I'm a very optimistic person, no matter how bad it seems. I wake up every morning energetic and ready to take on the fight.
And I believe that we do need to come together and form like financial investment groups
Yes.
and work on things together.
Reclaim our time.
Purchasing real estate
That's right.
together. A
That's
lot of
right.
times we feel like we have to do things individually, but we could really pool our money and pool our resources together and figure out ways to do things instead of trying to do things by ourselves.
Well, I think that's very important. I think we can not only pool our resources, we can get involved in joint ventures. Again, we can support our local banks and our black banks. And we can do more to work together. Our communities need economic development. And economic development really does come out of a desire by people to own things and to have businesses and to create jobs. And of course, you can look for resources to support that, but we need to initiate these opportunities.
Yes.
And where we have gentrification, we push back on it and say, no, you're not coming in here. We're going to do the development. We're going to create the businesses. But it really does take that kind of a belief in oneself.
And not talking
Yes.
ourselves out of things like, oh, I can't do this. Oh, there's no way this
Oh,
will
yeah.
happen.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Oh, black people don't
Yeah.
invest in the stock market. Oh,
Yeah.
black people don't do this. We do that.
We do this, and we can't say we can't. I mean, we must believe in ourselves, and so.
All right, so now tell us about Revolt. We heard that you had part of Revolt.
Part of the reason Revolt exists.
Yeah,
is
Diddy
because-
wouldn't have a network if it wasn't for Queen Maxine. Pay homage, Diddy.
Is that true?
Yeah, well, let me tell you what happened. And this is a time when elected officials can exercise some power. Comcast was coming in to do the big merger with NBC Universal. And when they come through, they have to go to the FCC and they have to lobby the Congress of the United States to give them support. And we said, wait a minute. We don't have enough ownership. We don't have enough blacks in management. And so we worked with them and we fought with Cohen over in Comcast a lot until we got them to come up with a way by which they were going to open up these opportunities. They formed a memorandum of understanding with some civil rights groups that was not that good because they did not have the real business involvement and background by which to create, these channels. So we worked very hard in order to get this done. And out of that came Magic Johnson's channel, Aspire, and P. Diddy's Revolt.
Wow.
And then we had one Latino, Bob Rodriguez, all got created because of this struggle that we had and the fact that Comcast had to agree to something so that they would not continue to get the pushback we were doing. I challenged them, and I put together hearings in L.A. I went to Chicago, and I was right there in their faces until they had to agree. And look, this is important because of the percentage participation of blacks with Comcast and with these cable channels. We watch this. We spend more money than anybody. And so I'm just so pleased. I didn't realize it was both radio and TV.
television.
Yes, the Breakfast Club is on Revolt every morning.
Yeah, they
All right.
broadcast our show, and you fought for Revolt, and Diddy don't even promote it. I am so pissed off about this. I'm pissed off about that.
Did he at least give you a nice Christmas gifts? Does he send some rock by the house or something?
No, but they. I've been at the studio in Los Angeles. I've been
Okay.
at Revolt Studio with all you young people and all the young people there, and they're very kind and very nice and all of that. And I've talked to P. Diddy did say thank you, and Andre Harrell has gotten us in touch with him.
Andre,
And, so we have a connection, but we want it to be deeper, and we want it to be more profound. We're going to be talking to them.
I hated Revolt till you told me that story.
Yeah, now you got to stop hating on Revolt.
I'm not even gonna lie to you. Until you told me that story, I was anti-Revolt.
Well, let's make sure we get this relationship, this connection even deeper. We're going to work on that too.
Absolutely. I gotta ask
Yes.
one more question. This is a personal question.
Yes.
This is a daddy question.
Yeah.
Now, your husband played football in the NFL for what, 6-7 years?
Yes.
Would you, with everything that's going on and being with your husband for so long, would you recommend that your grandkids, if they wanted to play football?
My husband and I have talked about that. He's with me this morning. He's Ambassador Sidney Williams. He played for the Cleveland Browns. As a matter of fact, Jim Brown introduced me to him many, many years ago before I married him. But we are concerned about the health.
I am too, yeah.
And all of the information that has been unveiled now about what happens to the brain because of those hits, no, I would not recommend my children to play football.
Wow.
My grandchildren.
Well,
No.
thank you very much for
You're
joining
welcome.
us.
Queen Maxine.
We appreciate it. Queen
Oh, you know what? Is
Maxine.
there any rappers you like now?
Yeah, I like Chance.
Okay.
I like a lot of them.
I'm surprised you didn't like Nelly, because you originally from St.
Well,
Louis.
I do. I like Nelly. I really do. I better say that. I'm from St. Louis. Nelly, yes, you're fine. I love you.
All right, it's the Breakfast Club with Miss Maxine Waters.